Hello everyone, welcome to week 8 in special crime investigation with simulation on interview and interrogation. Our topic is on religious crimes. So today we are going to identify the different goals of religious crimes, characterize the nature of religious related crime, and the men behind their perpetration. Let us start knowing the nature of religious-related crimes. Both Islam and Christianity claim to be revealed religions, holding that their teachings are truths that God Himself has conveyed to us and wants everyone to accept. They were from the start missionary religions, a religion charged with bringing God's truth to the world faces the question of how to deal with people who refuse to accept it. To what extent should it tolerate religious terror? At certain points in their histories, both Christianity could have been intolerant of other religions, often of each other, even to the point of violence. This was not inevitable, but neither was it an accident. The potential for intolerance lies in the logic of like Christianity and Islam that say their teaching derives from a divine revelation. For them, the truth that God has revealed is the most important truth there is. Therefore, denying or doubting this truth is extremely dangerous, both for non-believers who lack this essential truth and for believers who may well be misled by the denials and doubts of non-believers. Given these assumptions, it's easy to conclude that even extreme steps are warranted to eliminate non-belief. You may object that moral considerations should limit our opposition to non-belief. Don't people have a human right to follow their conscience and worship as they think they should? Here we reach a crux for those who adhere to revealed religion. You can either accept ordinary human standards of morality as a limit on how they interpret divine teachings, or they can insist on total fidelity to what they see as God's revelation, even when it contradicts ordinary human standards. Those who follow the second view insist that divine truth utterly exceeds human understanding, which is in no position to judge it. God reveals things to us precisely because they are truths we would never arrive at by our natural lights. When the omniscient God has spoken, we can only obey. For those holding this view, no secular considerations, not even appeals to conventional morality or practical common sense, can overturn a religious conviction that false beliefs are intolerable. Christianity itself has a long history of such intolerance, including the persecution of Jews, crusades against Muslims, and the 30 Years' War, in which religious and nationalist rivalries combined to devastate Central Europe. This devastation initiated a move toward tolerance among nations that came to see the folly of trying to impose their religions on foreigners. But intolerance of internal dissidents, Catholics, Jews, rival Protestant sects, continued even into the 19th century. It's worth noting that in this period, the Muslim Ottoman Empire was in many ways more tolerant than most Christian countries. but Christians eventually embraced tolerance through a long and complex historical process. Critics of Christian revelation by Enlightenment thinkers like Voltaire, Rousseau, and Hume raised serious questions that made non-Christian religions and eventually even rejections of religion intellectually respectable. Social and economic changes, including capitalist economies, technological innovations, and democratic political movements, undermined the social structures that had sustained traditional religion. The eventual result was a widespread attitude of religious toleration in Europe and the United States. This attitude represented ethical progress, but it implied that religious truth was not so important, that its denial was intolerable. Religious beliefs and practices came to be regarded as only expressions of personal convictions, not to be endorsed or enforced by state authority. This is in effect subordinated the value of religious faith to the value of peace in a secular society. Today, almost all Christians are reconciled to this revision, and many would even claim that it better reflects the true meaning of their religion. The same is not true of Muslims. A minority of Muslim nations have a high level of religious tolerance. For example, Albania, Kosovo, Senegal, and Sierra Leone. But a majority, including Saudi Arabia, Iran, Pakistan, Iraq, and Malaysia, maintain strong restrictions on non-Muslim and, in some cases, certain heretical Muslim beliefs and practices. Although many Muslims think God's will require tolerance of false religious views, many do not. A Pew Research Center poll in 2013 found that in Iraq, Malaysia, Pakistan, and other nations in which Islam is officially favored, a large majority of Muslims think some form of Islamic law should be the law of the land. The poll also found that 76% of such Muslims in South Asia and 56% in the Middle East and North Africa favored executing Muslims to give up their religion, and that in 10 Muslim countries, at least 40% favored applying Islamic law to non-Muslims. This shows that for many Muslims, the revealed truths of Islam are not only a matter of personal conviction, but must also have a central place in the public sphere of a well-ordered society. There is no central religious authority or overwhelming consensus that excludes such Muslims from Islam. Intolerance need not lead to violence against non-believers, but as we have seen, the logic of revelation readily moves in that direction, unless interpretations of sacred texts are subject to non-religious constraints. Islamic thinkers like Ibn Sina accepted such constraints, and during the Middle Ages, Muslims were often far more tolerant than Christians. But the path of modern tolerance has proved more difficult for Islam than for Christianity, and many Muslims still do not accept the ethical constraints that require religious tolerance, and a significant minority sees violence against unbelievers as a divinely ordained duty. We may find it hard to believe that religious beliefs could motivate murders and insist that extreme violence is always due to mental instability or political fanaticism. But the logic in the history of religions tell against this view. Does this mean that Islam is evil? No, but it does not mean that it has not yet came to the extent that Christianity has. The danger is implicit in any religion that claims to be God's truth. To put it bluntly, Islam as a whole has not made the concessions to secular values that Christianity has. As President Obama recently said, some currents of Islam have not gone through a reformation that would help people adapt their religious doctrines to modernity. This adaptation will be long and difficult and require many intellectual and socio-economic changes, some produced by outside force, others arising from the increasing power of Islamic teachings on tolerance and love. But until such a transformation is achieved, it will be misleading to say that intolerance and violence are a pure betrayal of Islam. Let us move on to the types of religious abuses. Religious abuse is abuse administered under the guise of religion. So parang ginagamit nila ang religion to cover their misdeeds. So this includes harassment or humiliation, which may result in psychological trauma. Religious abuse may also include misuse of religion for selfish, secular, or ideological ends, such as the abuse of a clerical position. So the first type of religious abuse is psychological abuse. One specific meaning of the term religious abuse refers to psychological manipulation and harm inflicted on a person by using the teachings of their religion. This is perpetrated by members of the same or similar faith and includes the use of a position of authority within the religion. It is most often directed at children and emotionally vulnerable adults, and motivations behind such abuse vary but can be either well-intentioned or malicious. Oh, have you seen any example of this? Psychological manipulation and harm inflicted on a person by using the teachings of their religion, no? So, the most person attracted or psychological abuse, religious psychological abuse applied ay sa mga bata, no? And to emotionally vulnerable adults, no? Even well-intentioned religious abuse can have long-term psychological consequences, such as the victim developing phobias or long-term depression. They may have a sense of shame that persists even after they leave the religion. Person can also be manipulated into avoiding a beneficial action, such as a medical treatment, or to engage in harmful behavior. Then we have another type, against children. Religiously based psychological abuse of children can involve using teachings to subjugate children through fear or indoctrinating the child in the beliefs of their particular religion while suppressing other perspectives. Psychologist Jill Meaton describes this as crushing the child child's child's chance to form a personal morality and belief system. It makes them utterly reliant on the religion and or persons, and they never learn to reflect critically on information they receive. Similarly, the use of fear in a judgmental environment, such as the concept of hell, to control the child can be traumatic. Now let us have physical abuse in religious context. Often takes the form of beatings. Okay, so illegal confinement, neglect, nerd droning, or even murder in the belief that the child is possessed by evil spirit. Okay, so they are going to beat the child or any person in their belief that they are possessed by evil spirit. What else? Practicing sorcery or witchcraft, or has committed some kind of sin that warrants punishment. Such extreme cases are, though, rare. In 2012, the United Kingdom's Department for Children, Schools and Families instituted a new action plan to investigate the issue of fear-based abuse after several high-profile murders, such as that Christy Bamo. Over a term of 10 years, Scotland Yard conducted 83 investigations into allegations of abuse with faith-based element, and feared there were even more that were unreported. Religious violence and extremism, also called communal violence, is a term that covers all phenomena where religion is either the subject or object, or it could also be a violent behavior. Human sacrifice, child sacrifice, and child sacrifice in pre-Columbian culture. Archaeology has uncovered physical evidence of child sacrifice at several locations. Some of the best attested examples are the diverse rites that were part of the religious practices in Mesoamerica and the Inca Empire. Psychologists Alice Miller and Robert Godwin, psychohistorian Lloyd Demouse, and other advocates of children's rights have written about pre-Columbian sacrifice within the framework of child abuses. Plutarch, that was 46 to 120 AD, mentions the Carthaginian ritual burning of small children, as though Tertullian, Orosius, Diodorus, Siculus, and Pelolibi and Polybius do not. The Hebrew Bible also mentions what appears to be child sacrifice practiced at a place called the Tophet, or roasting place, by the Canaanites and by some Israelites. Children were thrown to the sharks in ancient Hawaii. Sacrificial victims were often infants. This is true. The slaughtering of newborn babies may be considered a common event in many countries, including the Eskimo, the Polynesians, the ancient Egyptians, the Chinese, the Scandinavians, and various indigenous peoples of Africa, the Americas, and Australia. Initiation rites. This is an artificial deformation of the skull, predates written history, and dates back as far as 45,000 BCE, as evidenced by two Neanderthal skulls found in Shanidar Cave. It was usually started just after birth and continued until the desired shape was achieved. It may have played a key role in Egyptian and Mayan societies. What are spiritual abuse includes? So they include psychological abuse and emotional abuse. Include physical abuse includes physical injury and deprivation of sustenance. Then we have sexual abuse, any act by deeds or words that shame or diminish the dignity of a person. Intimidation and the requirement to submit to a spiritual authority without any right to dissent. Unreasonable control of a person's basic right to exercise free will in spiritual or natural matters. False accusations and repeated criticism by labeling a person as, for example, disobedient, rebellious, lacking faith, demonized, apostate, an enemy of the church or a deity. Isolationism, separation, disenfranchisement or estrangement from family and friends outside the group due to cult, religious, or spiritual or indigenous beliefs. Esotericism, hidden agendas and requirements, revealed to members only as they successfully advance through various stages of faith. Enforced practice of spiritualism, mysticism, or other ideologies peculiar to members of that religion. Financial exploitation or enslavement of adherents. We have here the men behind religious abuses and global terrorism by religion. We have Pontius Pilate of Rome. During his reign, the citizens were bludgeoned to death, burned at the stake, or thrown into the lion's den if they vehemently refused to accept the cross. Stalin of Russia, after thousands of skeletal remains were discovered in Russia and its satellite states. This will serve to remember thousands after thousands of skeletal remains were discovered in Russia and its satellite states. A grim reminder that anyone who was against the personality cult of Stalin was doomed to death. Then we have the Mao's Red Army of China. During its Great Purge, anything that looks churchy were destroyed and banished to execution. Only those who pay homage and reverence to mouse coats find comfort and insurance of peace. So kung sino man yung kontra, no, sa mga thinkings and ideas of Mao, they will be executed, no? Pero kapag they will pay homage and reverence sa kanyang thoughts, they will find comfort and insurance of peace. Then we have Adolf Hitler of Germany, who subjugated and exterminated more than 6 million Jews into gas chambers. So this implies without an iota of doubt religious persecutions to satiate the Führer's mad craze and genocidal dreams of building an Aryan race. Next, we have cultism and sectarianism. So cult is an organization raised with spiritual or ethical beliefs, as it is suggestive of being the first stage of development into religion. It starts from the recruitment process, facilitated through the technique of psychological coercion, and when the flocks were entrailed under the magic spell of interpersonal influences of the charismatic leader, they were financially, physically exploited, and sexually abused. Then we have the sect groups that believe on orthodox rituals crafted from established religious ideology. We have here religious freedom clause of the Philippine Constitution and other laws. These are made as an instrument by cults to hide their illicit activities. So under Article 93 of the new Civil Code, no public official shall attempt to inquire into the truth of any religious doctrine before issuance of authorization to solemnize marriage. Article 123 of the revised penal code, it is a criminal offense for any public officer or employee to disturb or prevent religious services. Article 133, revised penal code, it is a felonious act for any person to perform an act notoriously offensive to the feelings of the faithful in a place devoted for religious ceremony. Article 32, new Civil Code, any public official or private individual who obstruct, impede, or violates the right to religious freedom is liable for damages. Any person under Article 26, new Civil Code, any person who shall vex or humiliate another on account of his religious belief, though does not constitute a criminal offense, is liable for damages. These provisions hinder anyone or any public officer to inquire or verify authenticity of any group tending to be a religion of their activities. Hence, if a cult presents itself as a religion, the state is engaged to prosecute these illicit groups. So this end our discussion. For your activity, you have essay on the first part and multiple choice test on the second part. Again, for answering the essay complete, you need to refer to the suggested reading in your module. So this is all, and thank you for joining me. Until next lesson.